Hi.
Come on in. Please, have a seat.
Okay.
Oh, well, you've seen Rachel behind us here. Rachel is part of our Reflctem team. We kind of talked about how she, could possibly be somebody who could help share some reflections after you and I have a conversation.
Oh, okay.
And if you feel like you would like to hear what she has to share, we can certainly pull her in. It's going to be completely up to you, and we'll see how you feel, as we go through the session today. Does that work for you?
Sure, that'd be fine. She's a therapist too, I'm thinking.
She is a therapist
Okay.
as well, and she's going to sit quietly and just watch this. And we put her back here so that she can be part of the camera right now, logistically.
Gotcha.
Otherwise, she'd be off to the side, but for these purposes, she's going to be behind us. And so I guess we can get started, and if you don't mind just pretending she's kind of not there while we're doing this. And so what brought you in today?
Well, as you know, I'm a writer, and I have horrible writer's block right now. I don't know how to get around it. It's everything I can do, and yet it's my living. So it's been going on for a couple months, and I've tried everything I know under the sun, and so I thought some buddies of mine who are writers said, you really should go see you.
Okay, so you've had conversations with other people about
just friends, though, yeah.
Yeah, with your friends. Okay, so if you hadn't come in on your own, who would have been the person who would motivate you the most to have made a call? I mean, you called me, but
if I hadn't come in on my own, probably the writers group that I'm involved in, because the number of them have had issues before, and they've had these writing. Some of them have had writing blocks, and and part of it is we tend to really hole up in these houses and write, and get it all out, and then try and get it published. And sometimes you're there and you're sitting there staring at the computer for forever.
okay.
And so you don't know what to do.
So you're just doing sort of like a communal writing space?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes we're way out on our own, like we're in these cabins, and like I've rented a house in the Bahamas before and just sat there for months and written. And other times I've rented a cabin up in the mountains and that kind of thing. So it's provided me an opportunity to really focus in on the writing in a natural setting that often gives me more, of a positive vibe for my writing, for what I'm writing about.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. So the reason somebody else would have sort of motivated you to make a call would have been because they've watched you struggle and you've shared.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, there's a group of us. We all hang out together, and some of the guys. There's a men's club actually, of writers' men's club, and they get together, and they're kind of grizzly kind of guys. And so they kind of said, one of the guys took me aside, and I just said at the meeting the other night, hey man, I can't do this. And he was like, well, have you tried this, and this? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, all right, well, here's the next solution.
Okay.
You got to get into your head.
So this morning, when you got up and you knew you were coming in this afternoon, how did you feel? Were you looking forward to it? Were you hesitant? What were your feelings?
For me, writing is such an internal process that I was thinking, man, I just can't wait to just pry this open somehow. So yeah, I was really looking forward to it, but scared out of my mind too.
Okay, that's quite understandable. It's really personal.
Yeah.
Personal exposure.
Well, and writing is so personal. It's such self-expression.
Absolutely, I can understand that. So, we have about 50 minutes together today, and what are you hoping can happen in this first session that we're having today?
I'm realistic to know that really if we can just begin to pry that door open a little bit, probably it'll blow right off its hinges.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're really looking for a foot in the door?
Yeah, if I can just get a foot in the door.
Okay.
Typically I find that helps a lot.
All right. So you kind of mentioned that it was a couple of months ago that this happened. Mm-hmm. So let's kind of delve into some of the history of, what was happening during that time, and maybe we could get some insight into that.
Well, what was happening back then? I was living out in that cabin out in the Rockies,
Okay.
and by myself, and writing about the recent the year that I spent embedded over in Afghanistan. And once I got that down, I was like, what do I do with that? And how do I deal with that? And this blizzard just set in on us out there for about 3 weeks. It was below zero every day. It got up to -5 for 3 weeks.
So that was a real change from when you first went over there, was the blizzard and kind of being.
Well,
were you
yeah, but
isolated?
it was just like being over in the middle of winter, where in the war zone. So it was like what I was writing about was happening right there.
Okay.
I hadn't really thought of it that way, but it was like that's exactly what I was experiencing, was that cold and just seeping into your bones and thinking, this is it.
Okay.
You know.
So you were doing some shifting. You were shifting from being a writer out there
Mm-hmm.
to revisiting it atmospherically.
Right, exactly. There I was in the mountains, and big soaring peaks and cold weather.
Right. So, having experienced that for about 3 weeks, and could I say reliving it, would that be a fair thing to say?
To a certain level, yeah, because when you're writing, you're going through those same set of emotions. It's really what, for me personally, it helps me channel it back onto the paper and get it out there.
Okay.
And then once I do that, I know it's just this emotional download.
Okay.
And then typically I'm just done with it.
So, it seems that you are not being able to download it onto paper at this point.
Right.
Right,
It was
so-
like the door froze shut.
Okay, so blizzard happened and everything froze. Okay.
Actually, the plumbing froze. The electricity got shut off.
It's very
Dog and I
thematic.
were by the fire all the time.
Very thematic, okay. So, have you, besides your writer friends that you have talked to about this, is there anybody else that you've reached out to, anybody else who's seen you struggle with this? Have there been any commentary about it, any thoughts that maybe at the time you were like, that doesn't sound right, and now we're thinking it's different?
It was just the friends I made in the group. So, yeah, I'm sorry, there's just not a lot of other folks. I don't know.
Okay.
So, there's the group that I hang out with, and otherwise I pretty much write.
Okay.
So, yeah, let me see. Yeah, we'll fix that for next time if you finish wrong.
Yeah.
So, technical difficulties.
Alright.
So there's the writers group, then there's my friends around town who are not writers, and some of them I've described it to a little bit, but I never expected them to kind of understand. I mean, they weren't, if you're not doing this kind of work, it's like, how would you understand what it's like to fish if you've never fished before?
Right, okay, so you sort of, they shared some advisory commentary that you didn't feel had much credence.
Right.
Okay.
Talking to a lobster fisherman about, harvesting hay in Kansas.
Right. So have you tried to do anything differently since the writer's block has happened? What's been not working?
I've been hammered at it, and just
Okay.
staring at the computer and trying to get it out and thinking about the experience, and it just isn't going anywhere.
Okay, all right. Okay. Well, at this point, if you feel comfortable, let's bring Rachel in and see if she has any reflections about what she's heard. Would you be open to
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, all right,
Why don't you come sit there?
okay. Well, thank you so much for inviting me here, Samira. It's been, I noticed that your client just gets so excited when he talks about writing. Like, it must just be such a passion for him. I wonder where that passion came from in him. Was it something that might have, been a childhood thing, or like his adventures and travels and, in Afghanistan, for example. I just was really struck by that.
Well, that's a really good thought. I hadn't really thought of the effects of all of it he's witnessed, and possibly that could be something that we need to sort of explore together and see what his feelings are about that, because it doesn't sound like I think seems to be so focused on the events that happened and getting them out that he may not be processing them at all. So I think that's a very good point. Was there anything that made you uncomfortable about what we were talking about?
No, there wasn't really anything that made me feel uncomfortable. I have to tell you though, his descriptions of how cold it was in the cabin, and then how it reminded him of, how absolutely frozen he was in Afghanistan, and now here he was in this cabin, mirrored with how frozen he was feeling with his work. And he said that he didn't know where to go with his writing. And yet, listening to him, I just felt like he had so many ideas of comparisons that he could make of writing and life, and the mirror of being frozen in Afghanistan and frozen in the mountains.
Right. Well, I really appreciate your reflections. I think that's really going to give us a lot to work with. And we'll have Wig, maybe if he would like to share how he feels about some of your reflections, and maybe we could take it from there.
Okay.
After that.
All right. Well, thank you so much for inviting, and if you don't mind, I'll
Absolutely.
just observe the rest.
Okay. Thank
Thanks.
you.